On my 28th birthday banquet, Gideon carried my sister, who had fallen into the swimming pool, back to her room in front of everyone. Everyone thought I would swallow my pride and endure the humiliation. Instead, I smashed the banquet hall and filed for divorce. Gideon turned back to look at me, a reckless smile tugging at his lips. Have you really thought it through? With me, there's no such thing as turning back. I nodded. I know. 3 years after leaving, I went to pick up my doctor boyfriend from work, but I ran into Gideon holding a delicate, doll-like little girl, sitting across from my boyfriend while consulting about her condition. The moment our eyes met, he let out a cold laugh, then pointed at me and said to the little girl, "Weren't you looking for your mom? That's her." Chapter 1. People bustled back and forth in the corridor, and the consultation room door had already been shut by the patient who went in. Gideon took long strides toward me and stopped right in front of me. That chiseled face of his was just as cold and sharp as in my memories. His perfectly tailored suit outlined his impeccably proportioned, model-like figure, and the little girl in his arms, wearing a couture princess dress, looked extremely adorable. She wrapped her arms around Gideon's neck and timidly sized me up. "What? You can't even recognize your own biological child?" Gideon's thin lips curved slightly, though the smile never reached his eyes. "Of course, you haven't looked at her once in all these years. How would you recognize her?" I froze, bitterness flooding my chest in an instant. Back then, in order to divorce him as quickly as possible, I didn't ask for anything, not even the child who was still wrapped in swaddling clothes. Everyone said I was heartless. Even my parents thought so. The day I first mentioned divorce, my mom specifically called me home. "You're already divorcing, why not take the child with you? She's your own flesh and blood. How could you be so cruel?" Seeing me lower my head without speaking, she grew anxious. "Once you divorce, your sister will marry Gideon sooner or later. Are you really going to let your sister become your daughter's stepmother?" I clenched my cold fingers. So in her heart, this marriage had belonged to Robin from beginning to end. I was nothing more than a temporary stand-in stranger, but Robin wasn't my biological sister. Fate played a cruel joke. She and I were switched at birth. After I was brought back home, I became the one arranged to marry Gideon. Robin was forced to separate from Gideon and left the country in anger, never contacting the family again. I didn't know how they persuaded Gideon, but he eventually agreed to marry me. We lived together for 2 years, respectful and polite, peaceful enough, but everyone knew Gideon had been searching for Robin all along. Chapter 2. The day I received Robin's message was my due date. In the middle of the night, I woke up from a sharp pain in my belly. Instinctively, I reached out for Gideon, only to find him on the balcony talking on the phone. His voice was gentle and soothing toward the person on the other end. "I'll pick you up myself. Don't worry. No one dares say anything to you." "Okay, I'll head out right now." The moment he turned around, our eyes locked. I spoke calmly. "My stomach feels a little uncomfortable. Can you take me to the hospital first?" He paused for only a split second before continuing to walk out. "I'll have the driver take you." Just as he neared the door, I called out to him again. Gideon's eyes on me held no warmth. "Something else?" The tightening pain in my abdomen made my voice tremble. "Gideon," I said, "if you walk out that door today, we're done." Gideon's face instantly darkened. "What are you throwing a tantrum about now?" "Maria, I'm just going to pick her up. What are you so nervous about?" He paused, then added, "Don't forget, this marriage was originally supposed to be hers, and you took it from her." It felt like someone had doused me with a bucket of ice water. In 2 years of marriage, not that Gideon ever loved me deeply, but he never mistreated me. At one point, he even made me believe he had let go of Robin and wanted to build a life with me. Only now did I realize it was all just an illusion. My abdomen tightened again, forcing me to bend over and take a deep breath. From Gideon's phone came Robin's cold voice. "If she doesn't welcome me, I'll buy a ticket and fly back right now." Gideon's expression tensed. He turned and strode quickly toward the door. "Don't be stubborn, I'm coming." "Robin, try leaving if you dare." As he spoke, he was already out the door. The door opened, then closed, shutting away all his dominance and all his favoritism. I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, trying to ease the pain, But the pain didn't ease, my belly instead felt as if it were dropping. Then suddenly, warm liquid trickled down my thigh. Panicked, I dialed Gideon's number. The moment I started speaking, I heard him say coldly, "How long are you going to keep this up?" My voice trembled. "I'm bleeding. The baby." "Enough." He cut me off sharply and mocked. "I thought you were different from the others. Didn't expect you to use such cheap tricks too. Whatever it is, wait until I'm back." With that, he hung up, decisive, ruthless. Before we married, my adoptive parents had told me, if you don't want to marry him, then don't. Worst case, we'll take care of you for the rest of your life. Back then, I thought as long as our family's interests were tied together, Gideon wouldn't push things to such extremes. Later I realized, you can't expect someone who never intended to love you to treat you like you matter. The thought of divorce first appeared at that exact moment. Chapter 3. That day, it was the ambulance that came to pick me up. As I lay on the operating table, my life hanging by a thread, many things crossed my mind. I thought about when I first married Gideon, and how we had a sweet period together. He would take me to watch the sea at dawn, kiss me when we were tipsy. Every evening and late night after we registered our marriage, he would take me and treat me like a wife. Our friends would envy and say, "Your husband really spoils you." But that kind of life lasted only for 6 months. The day I started noticing something was off, I overheard him talking with his friend. The friend asked him, "You're being so blatant about showing off your love. Are you trying to force Robin to come back? Though it seems like it's not working." Leaning against the railing, Gideon's lips curled into a barely perceptible sneer. "Well, let's see how long she can tolerate it. But your wife is really great in every way. Aren't you moved at all?" Gideon took a sip of wine and sneered. "It's just a game. I'm not that moved." The indifference in his eyes was something that would continue to pierce me painfully every day after that. I tried giving him the silent treatment. He was such a sensitive person that he would always notice when something was off with me. He'd come groveling, trying to comfort me. As he comforted me, I began comforting myself too. He couldn't let go of Robin, he was just unwilling to accept it. If he could, he'd pretend to love me for the rest of his life, and I would play along. At that time, I didn't know that time is never the cure, reunion is. As the surgery progressed, the footsteps of the medical staff suddenly became hurried. As my consciousness began to fade, I thought again about that incident. When my marriage with Gideon was confirmed, Robin went on a hunger strike and ended up fainting from low blood sugar. That rainy night, Gideon rushed into the emergency room with her in his arms. His white shirt was drenched, but he was oblivious, only focused on holding her hand tightly and calling out, "Robin," over and over. I stood behind them, holding the payment slip, watching him trembling as he fumbled through his pockets for a fruit candy. He carefully peeled off the wrapper and placed it between her pale lips. I stood by the stand, watching him bend down, exposing a sliver of his neck, sweat and rain mixing and running down his skin. That night, he was suffering from a stomachache too, drenched in cold sweat. But because Robin couldn't be left alone, he gritted his teeth and stayed in the ER all night. Meanwhile, I was fighting for my life with amniotic fluid embolism, and he couldn't even answer his phone. Love is one thing, but when it's so pitiful, I don't want it. Perhaps fate took pity on me, and in the end, I survived the ordeal. It wasn't until 5 days later, after I left the ICU, that I heard from the ward nurse what Gideon had been up to. While I was on the operating table, fighting for my life, he was busy hosting a welcome back party for Robin. He even prepared a fireworks display for her. Under the dazzling fireworks, they exchanged a glance, full of deep affection yet restrained. In this marriage, I forgave many things that shouldn't have been forgiven, thinking that this would lead to happiness. Later, I realized he had already predetermined our ending. No matter what I did, I could never be happy. So, the first thing I did when I was discharged from the hospital was to ask him for a divorce. He remained silent for a long time before replying. "Don't overthink things. You should focus on recovering your health." He thought I was just influenced by postpartum hormones. That's why I made such a decision. It wasn't until 3 months later, at the birthday party, that I brought up divorce again. At that moment, he was carrying a drenched Robin into the room. After hearing my words, He turned to look at me, a wicked smile on his face. You've thought this through? With me, there's no turning back. I nodded calmly. Yes. Chapter 4. Gideon. Arya. Robin's voice snapped me back to reality. She was standing next to Gideon, dressed in delicate makeup and high heels. The doctor said, "The surgery is scheduled for next month." Robin let out a relieved breath and smiled. You have no idea how hard it is to get an appointment with this Dr. Jeremy. Now, Arya will have. She suddenly stopped, as if just noticing me, and exclaimed in surprise, Maria? Before I could speak, she continued, did you come back because you knew Arya was sick? Well, after all, you are Arya's biological mother. As soon as she finished speaking, I heard Gideon's cold voice. Biological mother? She doesn't deserve that. I froze and instinctively looked at the child in his arms, but I found that in her eyes was a sense of disappointment and sadness I couldn't bear to face. In that moment, it felt as though my chest had been filled with shards of broken glass, the sharp pain quickly spreading to my limbs. At the beginning, Gideon had agreed to let me take the child, but then he went back on his word. I confronted him, asking why he had changed his mind. He lazily sat on the sofa, stretching his long legs out casually. Robin's worried about her figure and doesn't want to have children. I was furious. That's my child. And she's my child too. Don't worry. Robin will treat her as her own. I refused to agree, and he tried all kinds of methods to force me. No matter what he said, I wouldn't give in. In the end, he coldly stared at me. Maria, don't forget where your adoptive parents' jobs came from. At that moment, I suddenly understood I had no ability to fight back against him. As we were in a stalemate, Robin tugged at Gideon's sleeve, trying to ease the situation. How about we go have a meal together? It's a good time to catch up, right, Gideon? Gideon glanced at me, his gaze indifferent. I don't have the hobby of catching up with my ex-wife. Without another word, he turned and walked out. Robin followed a couple of steps but then turned back. You didn't come back to compete with me for Arya, did you? No, I came back to get married. She gave a short gasp. You're getting married? No wonder she was surprised. It had been 2 years since my divorce from Gideon, and they still hadn't gotten their marriage certificate or held a wedding. And once again, I was ahead of her. But strangely, she let out a long sigh of relief. Congratulations. Is the date set? Next month, the 8th. She hesitated for a moment before asking, You haven't told your parents about this yet, right? Why not ask for their opinion first? I'll talk to them later. That night, I received a call from my parents asking me to come home. As soon as I stepped through the door, my mother greeted me with a stern face, questioning, Why are you back? Didn't you leave with such determination, saying you'd never come back? And who are you marrying? How are their family conditions? Do they know you've been married and have a child? Chapter 5. I used to think of home as a safe harbor, but the storms I've weathered over the years have all been brought by this home. Parents always wish for their children's happiness, but my biological parents are the ones who truly know how to rub salt in my wounds. Although I had long known they didn't care for me, hearing these words still made my eyes redden, a wave of pain pressing down so heavily that I could hardly breathe. Seeing me silent, Robin hurriedly pulled my mother aside, though her words were aimed at me. Maria, just say something. Mom is doing this for your own good. If the other party doesn't know, you should tell them the truth sooner rather than later. I curved my lips into a mock smile, my tone full of sarcasm. Don't compare him to you. You don't deserve to. With that, my parents both shouted at the same time. What are you saying? Say that again. At the same time, Gideon's voice came from behind. What's going on? Following the sound, I saw Gideon standing at the corner of the stairs, holding Arya's hand. Robin immediately went up to him, naturally taking Arya's hand, and said to Gideon, Gideon, Maria is getting married. Gideon's voice was as indifferent as ever. Oh, congratulations, Robin said. That's exactly what I said. Congratulations on her finding true love. By the way, Maria, why didn't you bring your boyfriend today? No need for dinner. He's busy. I took out the wedding invitation and placed it on the coffee table. This is our invitation. Whether you come or not, it's up to you. Also, please don't ask me to come back here unless it's necessary. As I turned to leave, I met Arya's gaze. I paused in my tracks. She moved her lips as if trying to say, "Mom." I tightened my grip and, after struggling internally for several seconds, looked away expressionlessly and walked out. Chapter 6. While I was waiting for Jeremy at the entrance of the residential compound, a car slowly stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Gideon's sharply outlined face. "Get in." I politely declined. "No need. Thank you. My boyfriend is coming to pick me up." He let out a light laugh. "Maria, didn't you go check it out?" I frowned. "Check what?" "Bigamy is illegal. We're already divorced." "Are we?" His long fingers tapped lazily on the steering wheel. He spoke in an unhurried drawl. "What if I never signed the papers?" I almost couldn't believe my ears. "What did you just say?" He replied without answering. "Get in the car." I didn't move, trying to talk to him calmly. "Why didn't you sign?" Gideon rested one arm on the window frame, looking lazy and shameless. "Want to know? Then get in. They always say some people only love you 3 points, but pretend to give 7 points just to make you fall." Gideon was exactly that kind of person. Clearly, we were already divorced. Yet he still acted like the victim. "Gideon," I stared straight at him. "Don't tell me, you still can't let me go?" For a moment, shock flashed in his dark eyes, but it disappeared instantly. It was replaced by mockery. "You? Worthy of that?" "Oh." I raised a brow. "Then why haven't you married Robin yet?" His gaze on me held no warmth, only a half smile. "Not pretending anymore?" I froze. "What? You've been asking around recently about when Robin and I are getting our marriage certificate. Isn't that because you want to get back together?" I didn't deny it. Recently, I had indeed been asking about him and Robin, but not for the reason he thought. I didn't want to reconcile. I wanted to fight for custody of my child. Because not long ago, I received an anonymous email. The email contained a recorded conversation between Robin and my biological mother. Robin said, "Mom, Maria is getting married again. Why hasn't Gideon married me yet? Do you think he doesn't love me anymore?" My biological mother said, "If he doesn't love you, who would he love?" "Stop overthinking," Robin said. "These 3 years, his attention has all been on the kid. He hardly spends time with me." "You're stupid. Don't you know how to use some methods? If nothing else works, then give him a son. After that, he won't spare a glance for that girl." But I said I didn't want to have children. That was just a lie to prevent Gideon and Maria from having lingering feelings. "Trust me. Have him a son as soon as possible. A mother with a son holds power." Robin hesitated, then sighed. "Mom, you're still the best to me. Back then I thought that once Maria came back, you would all side with her." "Don't overthink. A child you gave birth to and a child you raised yourself, there's a difference." The recording ended there. That night, I stayed awake until dawn, and I finally made a decision. I was going to take my child back. Before coming back, I had already planned everything. I just never expected that Gideon had never signed the divorce agreement. "You have 1 minute left to think." Gideon's voice cut through my thoughts. I lowered my eyes, looking at him. "What exactly do you want?" He still didn't answer directly. "Arya wants to go to the amusement park. I'm busy tomorrow. You take her." The refusal reached my lips, but I couldn't say it. Gideon's fox-like eyes were too sharp, nothing could be hidden from him. "Tomorrow morning at 9. Don't disappoint her." Chapter 7. The next day, when I arrived at the amusement park entrance, Gideon and Arya were already there. He very naturally pushed Arya into my arms, checked the time, and said, 5 in the afternoon. I'll come pick her up. Then he left. His steps hurried, holding Arya. I walked inside. "What do you want to play?" Her big dark eyes held a trace of caution. "I want to play bumper cars, but Daddy won't let me." Hearing her childish, crisp voice, my heart softened completely. I gently explained, "You're still little, and bumper cars can be dangerous. How about we play something else?" "Okay." However, we had only taken a few steps when someone stopped us. It was Robin. She held a cake in her hand and approached with a bright smile. "Gideon told me to buy Arya's favorite cake. You two take it." I didn't want to accept it, but seeing the joy in Arya's eyes, I took it anyway. Robin's smile grew even brighter. Then have fun. In the days that followed, every time I recalled that scene, I wanted to tear that smile off Robin's face. She clearly knew Arya was allergic to mango, yet she deliberately brought a cake with mango. At the entrance of the emergency room, Gideon and Robin rushed over. Robin pointed at me angrily. How could you give her mango cake? Don't you know she's allergic? Even though I already knew Robin had bad intentions, I didn't expect her to have the audacity to twist the truth so shamelessly. What I expected even less was that Gideon believed her. A cold, layered chill appeared on his pale features. You gave it to her? No. I pressed my lips together. Robin brought the cake. She said you, Maria. Robin cut me off. I went to rehearsal early this morning. How could I have brought you cake? As she spoke, her eyes reddened. All these years I've been the one caring for Arya. How could I not know she's allergic to mango? Even if you want to take Arya away from me, you can't risk her health. I wanted to say something, yet nothing came out. As a mother, I didn't even know Arya was allergic to mango. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched her eat it right in front of me. I tried to explain, but the moment I opened my mouth, I saw Gideon's cold, emotionless face filled with naked disgust. Even when he didn't love me, he had never shown irritation toward me. This was the first time. Something deep inside me was suddenly pierced and intense, suffocating ache spreading in waves. The words I wanted to say rose to my throat, circled there, and were swallowed back down. What could I say? How could I say it? Say the cake was from Robin? Or say I didn't even know my own daughter's allergy history? No matter how I said it, I couldn't escape responsibility. Chapter 8. During the standoff, my biological parents arrived. Without asking a single question, they immediately started scolding me. I knew you didn't come back with good intentions this time. Even a vicious animal won't harm its own child. Yet you treat your biological daughter like this. Are you even human? As expected of a wild girl raised in the countryside, we should have never brought you back. The hands at my sides clenched into fists, my feet rooted to the ground. I had always known they favored Robin, but this time, without asking anything, they had already decided it was my fault. Even though I was the greatest victim here, they treated me as the enemy we all shared. I bit down hard on my lip, the taste of blood spreading over my tongue as my hands and feet turned cold. Just when I thought I would drown under all the accusations, a male voice descended like salvation. Enough. A gust of wind followed the white coat. The next second, I was pulled into someone's arms. He grasped my hand, his fingertips burning hot. He examined me quickly and only then let out a breath of relief, but his expression remained stern. What? You don't even dare get angry anymore? I gripped the corner of his coat. The moment he appeared, all my grievances surged up uncontrollably. Arya is in emergency care, my voice choked, barely able to form complete sentences. She ate the cake Robin gave her. I know. His voice was steady, without the slightest hesitation. I saw the security footage. That one sentence made everyone's expressions shift. Robin's face was the worst, but she quickly regained composure and forced a polite smile. Dr. Jeremy. So you know Maria? That's wonderful. I don't think it's wonderful. Jeremy cut her off mercilessly. If you really saw her as family, you wouldn't harm her child and then frame her for it. His usually calm, even aloof eyes were now as dark and deep as the midnight sea. Dr. Jeremy, this is our family matter, my biological father finally spoke, tone carrying polite distance reserved for outsiders. Not anymore. Jeremy cut him off. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried unquestionable authority. Since none of you treat her well, then don't come to our wedding. What? Wedding? You two are getting married? So you're the man she's marrying? Everyone stared at us in shock. Even Gideon, who had been silent until now, raised his brows slightly. The most shocked of all was Robin. How is that possible? How could you two get married? Do you even know she's been married before? That she has a child? No wonder they hadn't opened the wedding invitation. Otherwise, they would have known Jeremy was the groom. What? Women who've been married and had children don't deserve basic human rights? Jeremy's gaze toward Robin held no warmth at all. Robin stammered. I didn't mean it like that. Jeremy cut her off again, his words sharp as blades. As a woman, how can you hold so much malice toward another woman? Then again, without a vicious heart, you wouldn't harm a child. Dr. Jeremy. Gideon suddenly spoke, his voice icy. Watch your words. Jeremy curved his lips, though his words were directed at Robin. With all the time you spent scheming against a child, you couldn't spare a minute to check your fiancé's marital status? Robin frowned. What do you mean? Jeremy gave a dark, amused smile. It means your fiancé is still legally married. As soon as he said that, a suffocating silence fell around us. No one spoke. No one breathed. No one knew how long that oppressive silence lasted. Until suddenly, the emergency room doors opened. Jeremy and I rushed forward immediately. Gideon tried to follow, but Robin grabbed his arm. Gideon, aren't you going to explain? I'll explain at home. He shook off Robin's hand and strode into the elevator. As the elevator doors closed, I saw Robin's face twisted. By jealousy. By fury. By disbelief. Chapter 9. That day, Gideon had just entered the hospital room when Robin, who had rushed over, called him away. No one knew what happened afterward. That night, Gideon came again. Aria's condition had stabilized, and she was sleeping soundly. The tall man stood before me, looking down at me with a condescending gaze. You like him that much? A sentence with no beginning and no end, yet I understood. Gideon had met Jeremy a long time ago. At our wedding, when we went to toast the classmates' table, everyone stood up, except Jeremy. He didn't even look at me, just drank one glass after another. A man as perceptive as Gideon, how could he not notice something was wrong? But he said nothing, didn't show it at all, yet through small details, he let me know he minded. In the end, it was I who couldn't take it anymore and confessed on my own. I still remember Gideon's faintly amused expression when he learned that Jeremy and I were academic partners. You like him, being hit directly in my weak spot. I didn't get angry, I admitted it openly. Back in high school, many people liked Jeremy, myself included. He was always among the top 20 students in our grade, tall, fair-skinned, with an inexplicable calmness and inner steadiness. Jeremy had a clear understanding of himself and a maturity beyond his age. It was as if he had long found the rhythm of life and the direction of his efforts, moving forward quietly and gently. During the year we sat together as desk mates. I benefited a lot from him. His influence stayed with me all the way until now. Do you like him that much? Then compared to how you liked me back then? Gideon's voice pulled me back to the present. His thin lips were pressed tight, and his deep black eyes stared fixedly at me. Meeting his gaze, I let out a soft laugh. Compared to him? You? Worthy? His expression collapsed instantly. What did you just say? No wonder he was shocked. All these years, I had played the obedient girl in front of him, never defying him, never speaking to him in this tone. Because I cared too much, I was overly cautious. I always thought that if I followed his lead, he would eventually give me his heart. Later, I realized, you can't expect someone who never intended to love you to ever give you anything real. Gideon, I said, the divorce agreement needs to be rewritten. I want Arya. No way. Gideon rejected me without even thinking. I'm informing you, not negotiating. After what happened, there was no way I would leave Arya with them. Right now, Robin wasn't even Arya's stepmother, yet she had already deliberately harmed her. If they got married and lived together, I didn't dare imagine what Arya's future would become. So no matter the cost, I would fight for custody. Realizing I wasn't joking, Gideon's expression darkened instantly. You want my daughter to call another man dad? In what world is that happening? I frowned. Arya is my daughter too. Besides, Jeremy is a pediatric specialist. He can take better care. In your dreams, Gideon enunciated each word coldly. If that's the case, then we won't divorce. What? I nearly thought something was wrong with my hearing. He gave a cold laugh. Isn't it because you can't part with the child? Then let's give the child a complete home. We won't divorce. Are you insane? I trembled with anger, unable to believe he would say something like that. He gave me a deep look. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll pick you both up and take you home. Gideon, what are you trying to do? He ignored me completely, checked Aria's condition, and then strode out of the room. Chapter 10. I was convinced Gideon only said those things to make my life difficult. After all, Robin was the one he truly wanted to marry. But it wasn't until Robin stormed into the hospital to confront me that I realized Gideon hadn't been joking at all. Maria, what did you say to Gideon? Why would he cancel our engagement? I frowned. What does your cancelled engagement have to do with me? Robin threw the divorce agreement at me. He never signed it, didn't you know? Don't tell me you didn't know. I glanced at it. There was indeed only my signature on the page. In the past few days, I had already accepted the fact that Gideon and I were technically still married. So my emotions remained calm. I truly didn't know. Back then, Gideon said he would handle everything quickly, and I believed him. Because at that time, the only person in his eyes was Robin. As for why 2 years passed and he still hadn't signed, I couldn't understand either. I lifted my gaze calmly. If possible, please ask him to sign it soon. After a pause, I added, bigamy is illegal. I hope this can be resolved before my wedding. Robin hadn't expected this reaction. She looked uncertain. You really didn't come back to get back together with him? No. From the moment I decided to divorce him, I never intended to look back. She still didn't believe me. You're not trying to get your daughter back? If he refuses to divorce, won't you get to live with your daughter again? Robin, I said. Let's work together. Robin said nothing. She stared at me without blinking, as if trying to see through me completely. After a long while, she finally spoke. How do we work together? That depends on what methods you have. Don't worry, once he signs, I'll take Aria and leave immediately. Why should I trust you? I smiled slightly. Because you don't want to be my daughter's stepmother. Her expression shifted several times. After a long silence, she finally said, deal. It's a promise. Chapter 11. After seeing Robin off, I took Aria and left the hospital. On the way, Aria stared at me with her big round eyes. When she asked me for the 8th time where we were going, I pulled over and asked her seriously, Aria, are you willing to live with mommy? She asked curiously. Aria can live with mommy? Of course you can. Then, will we ever be separated again? No, we'll never be separated again. Aria smiled so brightly her eyes curved. Then I want to live with mommy forever. Never be apart. I let out a breath of relief and told her. From now on, no matter who asks you, you always say you want to live with mommy, okay? She nodded, not fully understanding but obedient. When we returned home, I immediately went online to file for divorce again. It wasn't that I didn't trust Robin. I didn't trust Gideon. He looked polished and elegant. But in reality, he was the kind of lunatic capable of doing anything. That night, I had just coaxed Aria to sleep when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Gideon. He had actually found us. Standing behind the door, I texted Jeremy and told him what was happening. He was probably in surgery, no reply. Thinking for a moment, I messaged Robin. 2 minutes after the message was sent, Gideon's phone rang. He answered, and whatever the person said, he hurriedly left. I stood behind the door for several minutes, making sure he wouldn't return before I finally relaxed and went back to the bedroom. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a phone call. It was Jeremy's colleague. Dr. Jeremy got into a fight. You should come quickly. Chapter 12. From the time we met at 17 until now, Jeremy had never been someone who'd easily get into a direct conflict with others. Rushing toward the hospital, I kept replaying what Jeremy's colleague had told me. He said, that CEO Gideon guy came looking for him, didn't say a word, and just punched him. Dr. Jeremy didn't fight back at all, and then went straight into the hospital. He hit him hard, really hard. Beat him, forget it. You'll see. I hadn't expected Gideon to still be at the hospital. Just as I was about to push the door open, Gideon's voice came from inside. For a woman like her, is it worth it? It took Jeremy a long time to speak. Do you know why I didn't fight back? Because this increases her chances of getting custody. Gideon let out a cold laugh. What's so special about her that makes you do this? Instead of answering, Jeremy asked back, that recording she received, wasn't it sent by you? You think she's just throwing a tantrum by leaving. Dragging out the divorce for years won't make her change her mind. The next second, his tone carried a trace of mocking delight. Gideon, you know you can't coax a wife after letting it sit overnight, let alone letting it sit for years. Gideon's face turned dark as iron, yet he couldn't refute a single word. When he left, I hid in the room next door. Only after he walked far away did I enter Jeremy's ward. Seeing me, he instinctively tried to avoid me, but there was nowhere to escape. Feeling guilty, he asked, Why did you come? I snapped. If I didn't come, how would I know you were beaten up like this? It wasn't until I saw him that I truly understood how brutal Gideon had been. Jeremy's left hand was wrapped in bandages, his head wrapped in gauze, with bruises around his eye and at the corner of his lip. Let's call the police, I said. Get a medical injury report and sue him. Maria, Jeremy hesitated. If I didn't want to hold back, he wouldn't have been able to hurt me at all. I frowned. But you're hurt now, Jeremy said softly. Next time, I'll fight back. I couldn't help but laugh from anger. You still want there to be a next time? Chapter 13. During the time Jeremy was hospitalized, I stayed in the hospital with Arya to take care of him. What I didn't expect was that Arya really liked Jeremy. As long as I wasn't paying attention, she would climb onto the bed and sit beside Jeremy, asking him to tell her stories. Whenever I got angry, the two of them, one big, one small, would smile at me and act cute. Life was unexpectedly warm and harmonious. The day Jeremy was discharged, the medical injury report also came out. He handed me the surveillance footage of the fight and the injury assessment, telling me to sue Gideon, but no one expected. Before I even submitted the evidence, Gideon had already sent the finalized divorce agreement over. The contents were different from the previous version. It included custody arrangements and child support terms. The amount column was left blank, waiting for me to fill in whatever I wanted. At the end of the document, Gideon had already signed. I didn't know why Gideon suddenly changed his mind, but since he was willing to divorce peacefully, it saved me a lot of trouble. 1 month of cooling off period. Not long, not short. On the day we processed the paperwork, I saw Gideon. He was neatly dressed, just like the day we got married, wearing a black suit. When he saw me and Jeremy arriving with Arya, he froze for a moment before looking toward Arya. Arya greeted him cheerfully. Daddy. Daddy said I can be discharged in a few days. Yes, during the cooling off period, Arya had completed her surgery. Jeremy performed it himself. It went smoothly, and Arya recovered very well. However, Gideon only went to the hospital on the day of the surgery and never visited again. He wanted to hug her, but halfway through raising his hand, he pulled back. Seeing this, Jeremy said to me, I'll take her for a walk. Call me when you're done. Okay. I originally thought the divorce procedures would be complicated, but they were surprisingly smooth. When the divorce certificate was handed to me, I exhaled in relief. Walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I saw Jeremy carrying Arya, picking up leaves on the lawn. I was about to walk toward them when I heard Gideon call me from behind. Aren't you going to say something? I paused, then replied instinctively. Congratulations on your divorce. He pressed his lips together. Maria, if back then I hadn't agreed to the divorce, would you have stayed? I thought for a moment. Gideon, do you know? Back then, after Robin returned, you didn't even care to pretend you loved me anymore. I'm not someone who clings, so I took back my affection and left politely. A door that refuses to open for me. It wouldn't be polite to keep knocking. That day, even after Jeremy's car drove far away, I could still see Gideon standing outside the building, staring blankly into the distance. Whatever he was thinking had nothing to do with me. I held the sleeping Arya tightly in my arms and exchanged a smile with Jeremy, with a hint of proud satisfaction in his voice. He said, a wife is indeed someone you have to win over with effort. Chapter Extra. The day Gideon realized he didn't love Robin was the day Jeremy was discharged from the hospital. As if driven by something inexplicable, he drove to the hospital, only to be stopped by Robin in the parking lot. She confronted him. You've been coming to the hospital every day. Don't tell me you just realized you can't let go of Maria? These days, Robin had tried every possible way to bring up marriage, But Gideon brushed her off every time. She followed him for more than half a month and discovered he often hid outside the hospital room, watching Maria and Jeremy like some sort of voyeur. To be exact, watching Maria, Jeremy, and Arya. The three of them interacted warmly, harmoniously. No one looked more like a real family than they did. Arya was even happier around Jeremy than she was around Gideon. At first, Robin thought Gideon would give up after seeing this, but instead, he became addicted, coming every day, watching every day, doing nothing. She couldn't take it anymore and decided to confront him. But what she didn't expect was that Gideon actually admitted it. You know, Maria and I are still legally married, right? I won't divorce her. Robin was stunned. What do you mean? You're breaking up with me? Yes. Why? If you break up with me, then what do all these years I spent by your side mean? After a long time, he spoke. I've wronged you. Seeing his firm attitude, she softened her tone. It's okay. Feelings can be cultivated. Just finalize the divorce with Maria. She wants the child, right? Give her the child, we can have another one. He cut her off mercilessly. I mean, I will never marry you. Robin froze. Why? Gideon laughed coldly. You really think I didn't notice your tricks? It's one thing to mistreat my daughter at home, but you even fed her mango. Robin, if you keep pushing me, I can sue you for attempted murder. With that accusation placed on her, Robin fell into despair. So you always knew it was me? Why didn't you expose me? That's not something for you to question. In the distance, Jeremy and Maria had already gotten into the car. Gideon didn't even get a chance to greet them. He turned to get into his own car but was blocked by Robin. Gideon, you're a coward. You always were. If you had even once resisted your family, the one marrying you would have been me. But you didn't. And 2 years ago, if you had dared to face your own feelings, you wouldn't have missed Maria, even if you use a marriage certificate now to tie Maria down. So what? Her heart hasn't been yours for a long time. You're just a pitiful fool. That night, Gideon drank until dawn. When he sobered up, he decided to let go. After Jeremy and Maria's wedding, the three of them moved away from the city, and President Gideon never married again. His friend tried to persuade him. Gideon, she's married with a child now. After so many years, isn't it time to move on? Gideon's eyes reddened, a suffocating pain crushing him as he whispered, how am I supposed to let go? During those 2 years together, he thought everything was just a game. Little did he know, every smile of hers had already carved itself into his bones. In the quiet of midnight, the despair and heartbreak in her eyes hurt him. Again and again,